This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. The devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain. Yeah.
Pull up, turn the volume, let the bass ignite. Devil's advocates, that's the channel. Together we fight. They ain't here to echo what the masses preach. They challenge beliefs, putting truth within reach. Flip the script, reverse the lens, ain't no fear to provoke. Unpopular opinions, watch the stagnant water smoke. They dissect the narratives, poke holes in the facade. Sharpening the mind, ain't no truth they'll disregard.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
See, the description hit hard, that's the blueprint to code. Not everyone likes it, but that's the path they strode. Challenging beliefs, that's the mission to aim. Flipping tables on conventional, fanning intellectual flame. Stepping opposing view, not for conflicts embrace, but to sharpen the blade of truth. Leave no logical trace of error or bias or thoughts that just float. They dig to the core, let the arguments bloat with substance and reason, not just empty retort. They building up thinkers, a mental fortress of fort.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
You don't go by always being right, that's a stagnant pool. Growth comes from questioning, breaking every rigid rule. Honest conversations, bold questions, a few uncomfortable facts. They lay it all bare, no turning back, no looking back. Seeking clarity over debate, either way you win. They push you to understand where your own thoughts begin. So hit that subscribe button, let the knowledge unfurl. The devil's advocates,
changing your whole world.
yeah, it might make you squirm, but that's how you transcend. Listen to the devil's advocates till the very end.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
All right, welcome in. Hopefully we got the sound working on both platforms now. I should be on the Y side. I'm going to go ahead and enable the microphone for Robin. Robin, are you there in the wings?
I am. Hello, hello.
Fantastic. And I need to get my moderator on the T side. We'll try to be a little ambiguous and not promote each other's stuff, cross-promoting. So I'm looking to see if she's over there. I don't see an invite request from her yet. So we'll give a minute for that to show up on the T side as well. So tonight, I've got a bunch of announcements. I've got a little bit of news. I got a disappointing piece of news that is actually exciting and disappointing at the same time. I'll explain that in just a minute. We're going to talk Luigi Mangione primarily tonight. Tuesday nights are generally my Luigi Mangione nights, so we're going to focus mostly on that. There'll be a little bit of Tyler Robinson / Charlie Kirk stuff thrown in because, as I stated from the very beginning, we are going to start seeing mainstream media and the President of the United States and Pam Bondi and everyone start to associate Luigi Mangione with Tyler Robinson. I knew that was coming, and it didn't take any time to do so. I already showed you some documents where that was happening in mainstream media. It's getting much, much worse, as I expected. And so we're going to cover that a little bit. And we're going to try to do it in a way where we don't get in trouble. Because last time I talked about just what Pam Bondi said, repeating her words and Karen Agnifalo's response to Pam Bondi, not even my own personal opinions, just stating those two things got me suspended on one of my platforms because they considered that hate speech by telling the news. I was literally just reading what Pam Bondi said and what the response was from Luigi's lawyer, and that got me suspended for a while for hate speech. We are in an uber ass puckering tight, completely anal retentive period in our lives where mainstream media doesn't want you to say anything remotely positive that could even be perceived as remotely positive, or they will shut you down for hate speech for talking about Luigi Mangione in a positive manner. You're only allowed to talk about him in a negative manner. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to talk about him the way that I plan on talking about him, which is talking about the constitutional issues, the legal issues, the law enforcement issues, and that's what I do. And if that's hate speech, then I don't know what to say. I have a lot of rude things to say. I'll just try to avoid that. I'm still, oh, it looks like I've got my moderator on the T side. So let me hook her up. And are you there? Oh, Kimberly's still loaded. Are you there, Kimberly? I'm pretty sure I heard her sound. Okay, I now have a moderator in both of my ears, and if they ring a bell or something like that, hopefully they'll do that so they can get my attention so that I don't have to spend as much time looking through the comments. But by the way, thank you all who are coming today to hang out with us on a, is it freaking Tuesday? I lose track of days nowadays. I was super excited in the Luigi Mangione thing to tell you some exciting news about tomorrow, and that's the bad news. It got postponed already. But here's the good news. Recently, you may have seen that I was live with Ali Benevento. She's big on the T platform and growing steadily. She's a criminal defense attorney of over 15 years, South Carolina. Really, really wonderful person who has treated me very well. And we talk with Luigi Mangione at length, especially the legal documents. We got on a little bit ago and riffed together on both Y and T platforms and talked about the latest ruling by Judge Caro in the Luigi Mangione case, where Judge Caro removed first-degree murder in furtherance of an act of terrorism because that judge had the stones, the huevos, the cojones. What was the word that Ali used? I think it was cojones. That judge had the cojones. Yeah, she said he had the cojones to actually say, this is not an act of terrorism. You're misapplying the term terrorism. You can't just call one person shooting one person a terrorist. It doesn't apply. So as she said, I was impressed that the judge had the cojones to say such a thing. And I as well said the same. I thought the same thing, like, wow, a judge actually is ruling and doing the right thing. That was an overcharge. And several of us knew it. The exciting news was that after we got done talking to Ali Benevento last week, and a lot of you on the T side already know her, unfortunately, she doesn't have a presence on the Y side, and that's not coming anytime soon. So hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. But Ali basically said, hey, I want to make this a regular thing between you and I, especially why Luigi Mangione stories and legal documents are hot. So let's keep doing this every single Wednesday, which I was excited to do as well. Ali was going to bring on her good friend, Sean Kent, for another South Carolina, South Carolina? Yeah, attorney, criminal defense attorney, who also is big on TikTok. And so the three of us were going to get on there. In fact, I got a little bit of stage fright. I'm like, what exactly what is my presence in that room? I got two big attorneys talking about Luigi Mangione, and what am I? I'm a talking head. Well, that's what we're going to do. The three of us are going to go together, and hopefully very soon. That was going to happen tomorrow. I was super excited to tell you about it. It was going to be a huge thing. Unfortunately, these freaking attorneys are busy. And so something came up, and, and Ali had to postpone by a half hour, which then turned into a shit. I can't do it this week. We're going to have to do it next week. And freaking attorneys, man. Anyways, they're very busy. They're busy. So we'll get them on as soon as possible. But I'm super excited to have to get to know Sean, who's one of her best friends, and really going to be a great addition to the show to be able to have his thoughts and his opinions. In fact, I'm not even sure if it'll be him coming on my show or me going on his show. He's got a much bigger audience. So I'm going to let them call the shots. I'm going to let Ali and him call the shots. But I will inform you of what's going on in case you want to tune into that special live when it happens. So in the meantime, we're going to talk about Luigi Mangione tonight. And we're going to talk about a little bit, like I said, a little bit about Charlie Kirk and I did put out a big video about Charlie Kirk. I think it's members only right now. It'll go live tomorrow on my best interpretation of actually who shot Charlie Kirk, which I don't necessarily believe it was Tyler Robinson, but we'll get into that later on a special about that. Let's go ahead and put on screen, if I can, my screen sharing and this and bam. So on the T side, of course, it already is above me up there, but on the Y side, I got to put up on screen. And so there it is. And now you've got Robin's lovely little thumbnail beside the screen as well. You're still there, audio, right, Robin?
Yipper.
Alrighty then. And my moderators are being super, super silent, so the crowd must be super, super silent. So one thing that I do have is a gift of gab. So apparently I don't even need your input. I'll just keep running my mouth nonstop, almost without breath, and I never stop. All right, so this is my website for those who are not familiar with it. Up there again on T, or over there if you're on the Y side, devilsadvocates.info. I'm covering 5 cases, really, but really. So Idaho 4 Brian Kohberger case is coming to a close. Yes, new documents just got released in the Idaho 4 case, more photos. And for the most part, I've looked at over half of them. They looked like garbage to me. They're not useful. And somebody else said, have you seen the new documents? They're garbage. So I'm beginning to think that the rest of the pictures are going to be garbage, meaning the same thing I've said from the very beginning. Nothing's going to change the outcome of that case. It is done. Brian Kohberger pled guilty in that case. We won't spend a lot of time on that. But the point being is that that's one of the cases. But because it's kind of wrapping up, it's not going to go away for good. Trust me. I don't believe that everyone that was involved in that crime has been brought to justice. I don't think that they ever will, but I'm going to cross my fingers, and I'm going to talk about the people who got away with it as it comes up and as we learn more things. But at the end of the day, what can you do about it if they will never have a trial? We will never have a trial in that case. Luigi Mangione is also what we're talking about tonight. That's one of my big cases. In fact, it's the first case that I started with on the T side before I became a Y person. And so that is still near and dear to my heart and one of my biggest passions. But unlike any other case, when I talk about Luigi Mangione, I tend to get spanked. For example, even on the Y side, all I did was have a clip about how the judge ruled that Luigi Mangione was not a terrorist, and I was told by why that's ineligible for monetization because advertisers will not put their money behind even just saying what happened. A judge literally said it's not terrorism, and that makes me ineligible for money because no advertiser wants to put their money behind Luigi Mangione's name if it even remotely looks good for him, even when it was just literally the frickin' news. Like literally just the frickin' news. There was nothing sensational about it, I promise you. That's where we're at in this country. You can't talk positively about Luigi Mangione. I run a risk right now of getting shut down on either platform for just talking about the case. Let me reiterate one thing. I don't believe in vigilante justice, so I'm not saying if Luigi Mangione did it. Let's also keep in mind that I always have to repeat this every single time for the peanut gallery. We have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. Luigi Mangione has not been proven guilty in a court of law, so we cannot say Luigi Mangione shot Brian Thompson. That still has to be determined in a court of law. We don't even know for sure how his attorney is going to defend that case, and so we're just going to have to put that whole thing on the back burner. And I realize that the president of the United States is flat out saying Luigi Mangione is the shooter and the killer. Pam Bondi is literally saying Luigi Mangione is a horrible person that murdered somebody in cold blood and a father of 2. They have no presumption, zero presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law, which is the absolute disgrace when your attorney general. See, this is where I'm going to get shut off. I'm just talking about the news. And yes, maybe I'm being a little bit more emotional at this moment. But when the attorney general of the United States tells you somebody is guilty of murder before they've even stepped into the courtroom, shame on them for not understanding that our country is supposed to be based on the principle of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. And so Karen Agnifilo had fired back on Pam Bondi. She fired back to the judge. Judge, please remind Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, that you're to presume someone innocent until proven guilty. And she violated Local Rule 23.1, which is basically having a public figure come out and prejudice the entire country, especially New Yorkers who are going to put on a jury, telling them what Luigi Mangione is before he's ever set foot in a jury. She had a huge, huge document just recently where she ripped the unconstitutionality of the death penalty against Luigi Mangione because of that very issue. Pam Bondi literally told a grand jury who was being seated to decide whether or not Luigi Mangione was guilty of murder, and told them he is guilty of murder. If I've ever seen anyone guilty of murder, it's this guy, and he's a terrorist because of these 2 reasons. And surprise, surprise, the grand jury, after hearing that, came back with the exact same 2 terrorist charges that Pam Bondi told them he was guilty of. That should be a complete toss that shit out and start over. There should be a new grand jury convened. That's the way it should be done. Karen Agnifilo has made that argument on behalf of Luigi Mangione. You prejudiced that jury. You told that jury how to rule. And in fact, they ruled that way. Now, keep in mind, for those who are not familiar, a grand jury isn't, that's not his sentence. All a grand jury does is decide whether or not there's enough evidence to proceed to trial. That's just all it is. And the defense is not there. For a grand jury, the defense doesn't even show up. They're not even allowed to know what happened. So that grand jury is, they say in the business of law, you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich because it's just super easy. All you have to do is be able to say, do 12 people or however many people, I don't think a grand jury has to be exactly 12. The grand jury, do they think that there's enough evidence? And it doesn't have to be unanimous either, I don't believe. I think it's just an overwhelming or a majority to say, yeah, I think we have enough. I think there's enough evidence that you guys, I'd like to see this bit fought out in court. That's what a grand jury's job is. I'd like to see this fought. I'd like to see what the defense has to say. You guys got enough, right? But again, that grand jury was prejudiced. I got a question from some side. So who's got the bell ringing? All right. Well, so thank you on the T side for Desiree dropping gifts on us. There was a question about what's happening in Pennsylvania. And I have about 6 web pages that I want to read to you today and talk about. One of them is about what's happening in Pennsylvania. So unfortunately, it's the last slide I have. So I'm trying to decide whether to get to it early or just wait. I got another question. Okay. It's like the cat bell is ringing. I can hear like a cat's ringing a bell over there. No worries. All right. So I'm trying to decide whether to give you any background on the whole Pennsylvania versus New York versus state of New York versus federal government in New York. There's 3 different jurisdictions fighting over Luigi Mangione. I'm going to pocket that because we just did that the other night. And if you're not familiar with that, I got a million videos. Okay. I've got like 78, 79, 80 videos on the Y platform that lays it out in its entirety. Also, Luigi Mangione. In fact, I can put this up on the screen. Luigi Mangione, info.com is the official website of his attorneys. I'll blow it up as big as I can for both sides. That is the official website maintained by Luigi Mangione's team. And you will see that has litigation calendar. It tells you what the next dates are that Luigi Mangione is to appear in court or have a thing done. And then there's the federal case. There's the state of New York case and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania case. All formatted a little weird because normally they're like side by side. But because I scrolled in so big, there you go. So that's kind of how it usually looks. 3 columns with the 3 cases. There's 3 jurisdictions fighting over Luigi Mangione. So if you need to get updated on that, we'll do that another night because we just did this not too long ago. What I want to focus on is the new shit, which is that, again, Karen Agnifilo submitted a gigantic 118-page argument to the federal court system saying, okay, look, a judge just ruled Luigi Mangione is not a terrorist. Now let's talk about that whole aggravating factors. And again, in this federal case, there's not first and second degree murder. Murder with aggravating circumstances is what rises it to the level of being a death penalty issue. So the state does not execute people anymore in New York. They tend to not execute people anymore, and they don't try for the death penalty in New York State. And Luigi Mangione just got first degree murder dropped over there. But the federal government wants to execute them. Specifically, Pam Bondi said she's been directed by Donald Trump to be hard on crime and to reinstitute our country executing terrible criminals. And Luigi Mangione, she believes, is the worst of all political criminals. And that's the other argument, political criminals. And that's where we're going to focus today on some articles that is painting more and more Luigi Mangione as a political assassin, even though the entire 818-page document that Karen Agnifilo just argued about taking the death penalty off was in part because Luigi Mangione didn't assassinate, even if he did it. She didn't say he did it, but even if he did it, Brian Thompson is not a government official. Brian Thompson is not in the government. There is no political motivation. He doesn't represent the government. He represents a private company, United Healthcare, who makes a crap ton of money for their stakeholders and is not the government. So in what part are you stating that Luigi Mangione committed an act of terrorism against the government? And it wasn't terrorism, because that's not the term they use on the federal side. It's very nuanced if you're not familiar with the arguments. But what she argued was Luigi Mangione, in part, doesn't have an aggravating factor of going after a government agency because Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, isn't a government official. So whoever shot him, and she's not conceding it's Luigi Mangione, whoever shot him didn't commit an act against the government because it's not a government official. And yet, here comes the White House. And I wasn't sure which order to do it in, so I'll go to the White House. This is a White House memorandum put out by Donald Trump. And I'm not political, so please understand that when I pick on Donald Trump or I pick on Pam Bondi, it's not because they're Republicans, like I'm some kind of narrow-sighted Democrat who hates all Republicans and spews shit about every Republican. Believe me, if this was written by a Democratic president, I'd be busting that guy's nuts as well, or that girl's nuts, whatever the case may be. I am an equal opportunity nut buster, so it doesn't matter who's in office. President Trump, this is from the White House, President Trump isn't backing down from crushing radical left violence. Radical left violence. He has a massive, basically, section about how he's going after Antifa as a government, anti-government, anti-fascist, Antifa, anti-government group, and he's going to call them terrorists. So he's going to, again, we love in this country lately using the term terrorist, because if you can call somebody a terrorist, you can bring unprecedented law enforcement tactics against them to fight terrorism. And this is what we are fighting, people like me in this country, is stop using the freaking word terrorist for everyone, because you're cheapening the word, which is exactly what Judge Caro said against Luigi Mangione. You cheapen the word terrorist when one guy shoots one guy on the street of New York and you're calling him a terrorist. That's not at all what a terrorist definition is. You've misused it. But the Trump office, Pam Bondi and Donald Trump, they're not done calling Luigi Mangione a terrorist. Even after a ruling just got made in the state case, you can't call Luigi Mangione a terrorist. This is what blows my mind. I literally told people, hey, guess what? Judge Caro just said you can no longer call Luigi Mangione a terrorist. I forgot. Trump can say whatever the hell he wants. Pam Bondi can say whatever the hell, so they can still call him a terrorist and still say he's a political terrorist, even though the judge just ruled Luigi Mangione cannot be a terrorist. But that's a different jurisdiction. All right. President Donald Trump is right. The violence problem is on the left. That's why he just designated Antifa a network of radical left terrorists that aim to overthrow the government through violence and agitation as a domestic terrorist organization. So he has declared Antifa as a radical left organization set upon overthrowing the United States government. So they are terrorists. And so he cites a whole bunch of things that Antifa has done. And then we get down to this beauty. Antifa's terror is part of a trend of radical left violence that has permeated the nation in recent years, incited by constant lies and vicious attacks against Republicans from unhinged Democratic politicians, well-funded leftist organizations, and their allies in the media. In 2005, Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a radical left terrorist. Here we go, a little further down in the terrorism. In 2024, leftists celebrated Luigi Mangione for gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So there you go. I told you they're going to keep making this jump. Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a leftist terrorist. Luigi Mangione shot Brian Thompson. And even though Trump, you just had a freaking judge in New York tell you that Luigi Mangione is not a terrorist, you're going to still link him with a terrorist and say, I'm going after Antifa, a terrorist organization, and the people like shoot Charlie Kirk because that's a terrorist organization. And by the way, Luigi Mangione shot Brian Thompson. That's a terrorist. Did I forget something? That Brian Thompson is not a government official and he doesn't belong to the government. He doesn't work for the government unless you talk about backdoor deals and stuff like that, but doesn't work for the government directly. So how is that a terrorist? But we're going to link him to terrorism, always on and on and on with Charlie Kirk now for the narrative. And then in 2022, a violent mob invaded Turning Point USA's event in the University of New Mexico, forcing the speaker Tom Lehren and others to barricade themselves. This is a time that demands fearless, courageous leadership, not moral cowardice, indecision, or the lack of fortitude to call what it is, an epidemic of radical left violence. So there you go. Luigi Mangione is a political figure waging war on Republicans. I don't know how he made that jump. A judge just told you he wasn't a terrorist, and also Brian Thompson's not a politician. but somehow we are going to still call Luigi Mangione a terrorist and link him to Antifa and other political shootings, as if the shooting of Brian Thompson was a political shooting, and it was not. Then this article from, this is the Daily Pennsylvanian newspaper about that press release. The White House cites praise for Penn graduate Luigi Mangione in a memo on domestic terrorism. So they ran with it. Luigi Mangione is listed by the president as being one of the terrorists, and front page of this article, big, huge font, White House cites the praise for Penn graduate Luigi Mangione in a memo on domestic terrorism. So here's where it comes. This is the slippery slope. Now, not only is Luigi Mangione a terrorist, but anyone who praises him is also a terrorist. And by the way, praising him is just them saying you said something positive about him, which is why I get in trouble if I try to talk about constitutional issues, about how it's not appropriate to call him a terrorist, and a judge just ruled on it. Oh, that's hate speech. You can't say that. He's a terrorist. Donald Trump said so. Well, sorry, a judge just said he wasn't a terrorist. So this is where we're at in this country. I'm going to get told I have hate speech for reminding you that a judge just said Luigi Mangione is not a terrorist, but Trump's going to keep calling him a terrorist. So who wins? I bet you he does, but I'll keep saying it. A Monday memo from the White House, which we just read part of, listed the celebration of 2020 engineering graduate Luigi Mangione's killing of United CEO Brian Thompson as an example of radical left violence. Let us not forget that Luigi Mangione has not been proven to be the shooter. He hasn't even had a day in court. So already this article saying Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson. We don't even know that. He's never even stepped foot in his first day of trial. He's had pre-trial hearings, but there's been no trial. And already we're going to be told over and over again, over and over again, you are told every single day in America, you are told Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson. That has not been proven in a court of law, but we're going to keep saying it until every person who could possibly serve on a jury already goes into that jury room knowing that Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson. They're going to know that walking in because they've been told for years by the time he has his federal trial that he killed Brian Thompson. How's that fair? And if he,
Lee,
yeah, go ahead.
Kimberly needs reconnected. Looks like she got kicked off.
Okay. Thank you for telling me. I got my T side moderator that got booted, so I'm reconnecting her over there on that side. I was in the middle of a good rant, and now we just lost my rant, but that's okay. We'll go back.
Sorry.
No problem. The September 22nd memo was published following an executive order from 1968 Wharton graduate and President Donald Trump designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Again, why are we going straight from Luigi Mangione to Antifa being a domestic terrorist organization? Is Luigi Mangione part of Antifa? Like, when did that happen? How do we keep putting Antifa and Luigi Mangione together in paragraph after paragraph? What the frick's going on with the shaping of the narrative in this country? The memo alleges that the group's responsibility in a long history of terrorizing our communities, which was described as part of the trend of radical left violence that has permeated this nation in recent years. President Donald Trump is right. The violence problem is on the left, the memo read. That's why he's just designated Antifa, a network of radical left terrorists that aim to overthrow the government through violence and agitation, as a domestic terrorist organization. The executive order requires Trump administration to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle individuals and groups associating themselves with anti-fascist ideology, including against those who fund censor operations. This is the slippery slope I'm telling you right now. This is the slippery slope we all need to be terrified about. President Trump is going to wage war to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle anyone who associates themselves with those groups. So here comes the slippery slope. I just told you Luigi Mangione is an anti-government, leftist, fascist, whatever the hell he is. I'm going to name him everything I can. And because I've told you that, if you say anything that even remotely looks like you're trying to talk positive about him, you are now supporting him, and we will shut you down. We will dismantle you. We will deplatform you. We will make you stop talking about it, because we've already told you he's a criminal. He's an anti-governist, and anyone who talks about him to support him will be shut down. That is by definition a complete destroying of freedom of speech. When you shut down your opponents because you don't want to hear what they have to say, I've decided that you're supporting a terrorist, and I will shut you down. So there goes freedom of speech if we let that happen. Now, we're not there yet, so don't get crazy. We're not there yet, but we're heading that way. The move comes amid rising concern over political violence in the United States following the assassination of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk. Again, Luigi Mangione all over the top of the article, and we move right into Charlie Kirk. This is the way it's going to happen in every single mainstream paper in America. The narrative has been set. Mainstream media has been given their marching orders. Link Charlie Kirk's assassination to Luigi Mangione. They're both political assassinations. Even though Brian Thompson wasn't a political figure, this is the narrative that mainstream media will continue to beat into your head. They will keep mentioning Charlie Kirk and Luigi Mangione side by side so that you make the connection. These two were political assassinations. And Brian Thompson's not a politician, nor is he involved in government. So how do we make that jump? Alongside Kirk's assassination and leftists who celebrated Mangione, right there, alongside Kirk's assassination and leftists who celebrated Mangione, because whoever killed Kirk is the same person as Luigi Mangione. They're the same group. These have nothing to do with each other, in my opinion. They have nothing to do with each other, but we're going to keep linking them together. The memo also named assassination attempts made against Trump as an example of left-wing violence. So now whoever tries to shoot at Trump is Luigi Mangione's fault. Maybe I'm overstating it. Maybe you think, oh, devil's advocates, you're going way too far. That's not what he said. Well, read between the lines. Read between the lines, people. That's all I'm saying. Read between the lines. All right, so that's that article. Now, this one is a little complex and a little deep. So I'm trying to decide whether to leave that. And there's the prosecutor. Okay, yeah. So I only got 2 articles left to read. So I guess we're going to go for a little deep. Before I get into a little deep, and the reason I say this is a little deep, because this is psychological fuckery in my mind. They get weird. This article from the Claremont Independent is basically going to say, why don't people like me? This is what it's basically saying. I got to be super, super careful. It's basically saying, why don't people like me shut up or put out? If I'm gonna talk about any positive thing about violence, then go commit an act of violence. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't just sit in your armchair talking about how violence is okay. Go commit violence or shut the fuck up. One of the two. That's what the article is. It's almost like they're instigating people to go commit violence. It's like you're just going to talk about violence like it's an okay thing, so go do it or shut the hell up about it. Wow. Okay, and it's nuanced. So you have to have on your big adult pants here to get through this article. Any questions before I start getting into this deep dive on this article here? Silence. Silence is usually golden. All right. It is time to end the hypocrisy. Now, this could be taken one of 2 ways. I had to read this 3 times, and I'm still like, what the hell are you trying to say? So I'm going to blow this up bigger on screen, as big as I can possibly get it, so we have a chance for everyone to have a chance to read it along with me if they can. I'll try to center it on both screens. All right. Morgenstein then published an article in the forum drawing a striking parallel between Luigi Mangione and Rodion Raskolnikov, the protagonist in Dostoevsky's, I can't even say that name, Crime and Punishment, famous work, Crime and Punishment. So we're talking about the hero of the book, a fictional book, Raskolnikov, and we're linking him to Luigi Mangione in this article. Intelligent and well-educated, charming and handsome, both Mangione and Raskolnikov were driven to misery by their conditions. Mangione detested a healthcare system that he held responsible for his chronic pain. Raskolnikov, crippled by poverty rampant in Petersburg, was unable to finish law school. Both found individuals to blame, convincing themselves that the world would be better off if their targets were dead. Mangione found the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Raskolnikov found the local pawnbroker a miserly and exploitive lender. But don't be so quick to sympathize, Morgenstein warns, either with Raskolnikov or Mangione. Duskovsky, I can't even pronounce that name. Why the hell? I know that name and I'm slaughtering it. Anyways, that guy makes clear that Raskolnikov's motives were vile, for he believed that great men had the moral right to transgress the law, that he was a Napoleon ridding the world of the pernicious louse, and Mangione too seemed to have a vigilante complex. To fully understand his drive and drives of politically motivated killers, once again, another article marching to the beat of the drum. Luigi Mangione is a politically motivated assassin. Politically motivated is exactly how the government is trying to go after him to kill him, because he's a political assassin. assassin. Brian Thompson, may I say it one more time, is not a government official and does not work for the government. There is no political figure in this shooting, even if Mangione did it. But we're going to continually talk about Luigi Mangione shooting Brian Thompson is politically motivated. To fully understand his drive and the drives of politically motivated killers in the real world, one must consider the culture in which Raskolnikov was immersed. In Petersburg, bold theories of morality and justice rationalized extreme, often immoral change. Such actions was lauded in the abstract, often by well-established members of society, but thankfully never initiated. Sound familiar? Now, what they're saying in that hard-to-understand paragraph is that smart people, intelligent people would sit around and talk about, hey, what if things could be better because something tragic happened? And that's what they're mocking. People like me who say, let's put aside for a minute that we're not talking about vigilante justice, but let's talk about the bigger picture. What caused somebody to be so angry at the healthcare system that they thought shooting this person was a way to make change? Let's talk about that for a minute as well. Now, we can independently talk about Luigi Mangione and whether or not he needs to go to prison for what he did. That's fine. But let's also not forget the bigger picture. What happened in society that became something that was rational for someone to do? And it may not be with Luigi Mangione. Let's not forget that he has a presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. In the opening scenes of the novel, Raskolnikov overhears a student in a tavern arguing that killing the pawnbroker for her money would benefit Petersburg's residents, that thousands of lives would be improved by the death of one. Yet, when asked if he himself would kill the pawnbroker, the student sputters, "Of course not. I was only arguing the justice of it. It's nothing to do with me." What they are doing here is they're mocking me. And I'm telling you, I know, oh, devil's advocate. No, they're mocking people like me because I'm talking to you about the big issue. They're saying the cowards will say, you know, hey, maybe it's a good thing that one person died to save the lives of thousands. Things you've probably heard me say something very similar to, that thinkers will say, maybe in the end, this could be a good thing. And they'll say, but when you ask that person, would you shoot him? Well, no, of course not. I wouldn't shoot him. And essentially the article goes on to mock people like that. Well, you're a coward then. If you think that people should be killed, then go kill somebody. That's what you should do. Put your money where their mouth is. Don't just sit there behind your armchair talking about how it's okay. Go kill somebody. Or shut up. One of the two. Pick them. Later, attendees at a dinner party drew upon fashionable theories of the area, insisting that all societal dysfunction can be reformed by one mathematical head. They pin their hopes on a brilliant individual, one great man who will cleanse Petersburg of its ills. Never does it occur to them that their self-gratifying chatter, their idle talk directed towards no tangible action, intensifies the desperation and delusions of men like Raskolnikov. So again, the story that they're trying to paint behind the scenes is people like me who talk about constitutional issues and about those kind of things and about whether or not we should talk about the problems in America with the healthcare system are just inspiring another generation to go commit acts of violence. I'm inspiring people to violence, which is what they're going to use to go after people like me to shut down my platform and shut down my voice, because they'll say that me just talking about the issues is inspiring other people to violence, and I'm part of the problem. That's how you shut down free speech. You cleverly tell people that to talk about an issue makes you yourself a terrorist sympathizer. We see similar phenomenon today. One life for thousands, overthrow the oppressor, we're under siege. Pithy one-liners saturate X posts and think pieces, classrooms and podcasts. They're talking about people like me. An opponent is denigrated to subhuman status, just as Raskolnikov viewed the pawnbroker. A louse, sickly, stupid, and ill-natured. Soon enough, such grisly ideas possess the mind. So they're saying that people like us who talk about the constitutional issues and the big issues about healthcare in America and how it's broken and how our broken system led to this kind of situation are being shamed as the kind of person who's causing that violence in the first place. They are parasites that had it coming, said Mangione. So now again, they're showing that that's his attitude. Everyone wants an excuse for not doing the right thing, said Vance Bolter a few years before he was indicted for killing Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman. I have enough of this hatred, says Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's accused killer. Once again, Luigi Mangione and Tyler Kirk will be tied together within 2 sentences of each other, because that's the narrative the media has been told to spin. Okay, who do we got a question? Peanut Gallery? And that was Lydia, you said? Yeah, so Lydia asked a question, essentially was something like, how are we supposed to make change? We don't have any power. We don't have any lobbying power. And this is again where I'm going to get in trouble for free speech. There was a book written and protected by free speech in America called, and it's a book that is published and protected as free speech and has come under fire and has been upheld as free speech, a book called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. The premise of the book of How to Blow Up a Pipeline was looking at history. And one of the conclusions the book basically makes is voting people into office has never made a difference. Passing legislation has never made a difference. Protesting has never made a difference. Money doesn't listen to those kind of things. It doesn't work. And so that was the premise of that book. Now that's protected under free speech because the book doesn't call for people to go out and commit acts of violence. Neither am I, T and Y, calling for acts of violence. The book is a think tank. They're like, maybe if you look at history, at the times things have changed, it's changed because there was an act of violence. Oh my God, you can't say that. Why can't I say that? We're talking about history. That's all the book did, was point out history. When have things changed? Our country, one can argue, please not shut me down for hate speech. Our country, one can argue, was founded on violence. We committed treason against another country to form our country in the first place. It was violent. We've always solved things by violence. And yet, what the book, the nonfiction book said was, look, just what Lydia had said on the other platform, is that you voting people in office never changes anything. It doesn't change anything. Sometimes you have to look at what has changed things. Now, that does not mean you're calling for acts of violence. This is just talking. So it's a rhetorical question. What are we supposed to do? You're right. What are we supposed to do? Because you know what doesn't work? You know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We keep voting in different people every single freaking 2 years or 4 years. And guess what we get? The same results. So and again, let me be careful because I know where you're going with that. What are you saying then? What's the solution? I don't know what the solution is. We're talking. We're having a conversation like some adults. So quit treating us like we're terrorists because we're asking questions. We want the same thing that you do, a solution, but it's not voting more of the SOBs into office that just run. They're all in bed with the same money makers and they don't give a shit about America. That's not the solution. And we know it's not the solution. So now what is the solution? This isn't the solution necessarily either, if this is what happened, right? But what is the solution? And if we talk about it, don't shut it down as somehow a violent thing to talk about it. All right, so every one of these individuals was instigated in part by a culture that convinced them that they were doing the right thing. Yet in the moment that mattered, in the moment that they pulled the trigger, they were alone. Where were their supporters? Again, this is like mocking people who talk about it and don't do it. Hey, this shooter went and did this shooting all by themselves. Where were you? If you think it's a good thing that was done, why weren't you shooting somebody? That's like the whole book, the whole article has this attitude of, why didn't you go shoot somebody? You just sit there and let them do it on their own. You're an SOB. You let Charlie Kirk's assassin do it by himself. Why weren't you helping out? Put your money where your mouth is. I'm not even sure where the hell this author is trying to go with this piece. The intellectuals that insist upon violent revolution, whether to break the shackles of the oppressors or reclaim the American way of life, sat back in their armchairs. The most ardent apologists on the internet move on quickly, leaving only their digital footprint behind. They fan the flames and raise the temperature, but they stop there. They won't pull the trigger. They won't join the revolution. They won't join a civil war. What again are you doing? You're like, go out and commit violence, people. Don't just sit there and talk about how things are a problem in America. If you think that it is good to kill somebody, then go kill somebody. Which, again, we didn't say that it was okay to go kill somebody. That's the whole thing. This whole piece is just cleverly, and I'm just focusing on it because it bothers me so much. It's a mental fuckery. Most people's privately held convictions are incompatible with, most people's privately held convictions are incompatible with their public inflammatory rhetoric. This is true. People say shit on the internet all the time that they wouldn't say to your face because they get punched in the mouth if they said it. But we are shitty to each other as human beings in this country because we can sit behind Facebook and have a wall and I can say shitty things to you that you would never say to my face. In their heart of hearts, they know that no ideology can justify the brutality of killing someone in cold blood. Most people know better. Raskolnikov didn't. My fellow students, both on the left and the right, we are the ones who know better. It is no accident that many of you fail to preach what in fact you practice. You celebrate acts of violence that you'd never dare commit. You encourage others to wage wageful wars in which you'd never fight. Now that part right there, I have to tell them frankly, go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I dropped the F-bomb. I do not celebrate acts of violence, you piece of shit. That makes me so mad. I'm furious. That shit right there was uncalled for. You celebrate violence and you don't go out and commit violence yourself. You're a coward. Are you trying to incite violence? You're saying that we are trying to incite violence. And then what you're doing is you're calling me a coward because I somehow love violence, but yet I won't go out and commit violence. I don't even understand what the hell this piece is doing. But it pisses me off when they just turned a dialogue. We're just having a dialogue and said, I celebrate acts of violence that I won't commit because I'm a coward. Wow. You are like the members of the Petersburg elite, inner circles. You endlessly pontificate and never follow through. It's like, again, they're antagonizing you. You're just going to sit there and talk about it, but you won't do shit. Pick up a gun and do something. Are you kidding me? No. No one ever said that was what we should do. But they're antagonizing people. All right, you'll endlessly pontificate and never follow through, leaving the most desperate, unstable individuals to take matters into their own hands. Yes, I inspired Luigi Mangione to go commit acts of violence for me because I'm a coward. Your common and ordinary youthful talk is what it was in Duskovsky's time and what it will be in the future. Pretense. If found guilty, Luigi Mangione, Vance Bolter, and Tyler Robinson, notice you've got two politically motivated murders right next to Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione did not shoot a politician, even if he did it. We don't know that Luigi Mangione did it. For frick's sake, do I have to keep reminding you that we don't know that Luigi Mangione is the shooter? If Luigi Mangione is found guilty, then he's apparently just like Vance Bolter and Tyler Robinson, who did political shootings, and he will either rot in prison or be executed by the state. Back in Claremont, all of those that cheered them will settle into their lucrative careers and lead cushy lives. You'll attend 4th of July barbecues, and you'll take a vacation on Memorial Day weekend. You'll reap the benefits of life in a society that you claim to want to tear down. No, I never claimed I wanted to tear down the country, you SOB. Look at that bullshit. So anybody who actually talks positively about someone or about or calls out the injustices of the healthcare system, we want to tear America down. We want to tear the country down. And yet we'll sit there behind our barbecues and 4th of July parties and live our cush little jobs in a society that we want to tear down. None of us want to tear the society down. What we want is a better society. That's what we want, is a better society. None of us want to tear this shit down. Oh my gosh, I'm super preachy today. I have to almost apologize. This is not my normal style. I'm super preachy today. I don't believe that this inaction is mere cowardice or self-interest. It's not just mere cowardice or self-interest. Rather, it's silent proof of the appreciation that you'd never voice, appreciation of all that the pluralist liberal society has to offer. You know this system works, that tolerance works. Of course, it's not convenient for anyone's politics, be they on the left or the right, to praise the merits of this system or tackle society ills in accordance with its rules. That's why you are happy to speculate, leaving agitated individuals to do your dirty work. Again, because I'm talking about the issue, I'm just agitating other people to go commit acts of violence. That's what I'm doing. So they will shut me down soon if they can have their way, because I'm inciting violence by having a conversation about it. Because deep down, you know that political violence, that illiberately is dirty, that it is noxious in all its forms, especially as a means to extinguish free expression. To my peers, in your hypocrisy, bring your words into alignment with your actions, which is scary considering you just said you apparently like violence, but you're not doing anything about it. So why don't you bring your words into alignment with your actions? Are you telling us to go commit acts of violence? What the hell are you even doing? This means defending freedom of speech, even when you despise the content and tolerating your ideological adversaries, even and especially when they diametrically oppose your own convictions. That's the only part they say that's any worth shit in this entire thing, is that how about we tolerate your ideological adversaries, especially when they diametrically oppose your own convictions? Why don't we tolerate each other instead of instigating each other to violence or claiming that if I talk about the issues, I'm somehow a terrorist sympathizer? All right, so maybe you didn't follow my logic on that, and maybe it was too preachy, and maybe this should have been some other place, but there it is. Let's end, and we'll end with actually questions from the audience, but we're going to end with the first question we had, which is, well, what's happening in Pennsylvania? Here we go. In Pennsylvania, the district attorney has requested / demanded that the federal government allow Luigi Mangione to come to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, to face charges that are being brought against him in his arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And the feds have said no, they will not. But Pennsylvania knows that they're required by law to at least ask for Luigi Mangione to be able to appear in court, because the law states that a person has the right to face their accusers in face-to-face. And his attorney in Pennsylvania said Luigi Mangione has a right to face his accusers face-to-face. You must require a request that the government let go of Luigi Mangione and let him come to Pennsylvania to face his accusers face-to-face. And the feds said, F you, Luigi Mangione's ours, he will not go anywhere. Feds refused the Pennsylvania judge's order to turn Luigi Mangione over for prosecution in Blair County. I'm going to blow this up a little bit on screen for you guys. I'm thankful, by the way, to T moderators that you haven't shut us off. You're allowing us to talk free speech. Thank you so much. Again, I'm not inciting violence, and hopefully, I'm sure somebody probably tried to flag this at some point. Maybe we got lucky. I don't know what the situation is tonight, but thank you. You have my appreciation for letting us talk like adults. Let me go back on. So in the ongoing legal wrangling over state and federal charges involving Luigi Mangione, charged in the killing of the United CEO last year in New York. Hey, by the way, that's a good sentence. Luigi Mangione was charged in the killing, not Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson. That's how most of mainstream media articles start. Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson in New York. At least this one says Luigi Mangione is charged with killing. Charged with killing. Do you see the big difference? He killed him or he's charged with killing. There's a huge difference. Maybe this place gets it. But anyways, Luigi Mangione charged in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO last year in New York. Federal prosecutors continue to resist handing over Mangione to local authorities in Pennsylvania so that he can be in court to face the charges in the Commonwealth. Federal prosecutors in New York said they would be willing to let Mangione appear on a video conference for proceedings related to forgery, firearms charges, but Mangione's attorney Thomas Dickey insists that his client appears in person in Blair County courtroom. Criminal defendants have a right to attend court proceedings, although they can waive that right to attend by video conference. Luigi Mangione, specifically, his attorney said Luigi Mangione does not waive his right to appear in person and go on video conference. He wants to be there in person, as his constitutional right is, or the right by law. And they said, no, Luigi Mangione will not go. He will be on video call at best. That's in the story, not up for discussion. So there you go. That's what's happening in Pennsylvania. The fight continues. And we were told earlier, if the federal government officially refuses Thomas Dickey's request to have Luigi Mangione come to Pennsylvania, he has 14 days to file his response. So is this the official response from the feds? No, sir. Luigi Mangione will not be allowed to go. And now Thomas Dickey has a few more days, a week or whatever, to file his response of what that means if the feds won't let him go. Let my people go. So there you go. Now questions from either side, and we will wrap up tonight. I got a ding on the Y side, I think.
Yeah, Filigree wanted to know earlier what you think, Thomas Dickey's strategy might be for getting them to agree to let Luigi come to PA. I mean, is there any strategy that you could see that might work?
So the strategy, I think it's a multifaceted strategy, and it's kind of nuanced. So the question was, because the T side didn't necessarily hear it, the question was something to the effect of, what is the strategy of Thomas Dickey requiring or requesting Mangione be brought to Pennsylvania? There's a couple things. One, and it gets nuanced, the fight over habeas corpus, that is, who owns the body. Habeas corpus basically means I own the body, or who owns the body. It's the question of who owns Luigi Mangione, who has the right to keep him detained. So Thomas Dickey basically stated, per our laws and our legal system, the first sovereign. So when I talk about sovereigns, what am I talking about? Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is one sovereign. New York State is another sovereign. The federal government in New York is a third sovereign. There are three sovereigns going after Luigi Mangione. Our rules state that the first sovereign who arrests somebody has the first right to try them, which means Luigi Mangione was first arrested in Pennsylvania, and then he was extradited to the state, and then he was charged by the federal government in that order. So therefore, the Pennsylvania has the right to go first. That is their right to go first. Furthermore, Thomas Dickey argued that it's not only your right, it's your obligation, because you have about a year, if I understood it right, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe you have a year, which is why, by the way, Luigi Mangione was arrested in Pennsylvania on December 9th, 2024, and his court date in Pennsylvania was set for November, almost exactly a year later. It had to be done, I think, within a year, because Thomas Dickey is making the argument that if you can't hold somebody indefinitely without charging them or bringing them to trial. So that's what this is legal chess game. Thomas Dickey's like, you can't hold somebody indefinitely without bringing them to trial or whatever. You can't just say, well, we'll get to it someday. What you do have is you have a year. It's coming up on a year. So you have two choices. You either make a ruling on Luigi Mangione and you try him, you tell him what the charges are officially are, and you set a court date and you set a trial and you take him to trial, or you dismiss the charges. Those are your two choices. You can't keep him indefinitely. You must make a decision. You need to shit or get off the pot. So this is essentially the argument that Dickey is making. You've had him for a year. You were technically the person on record. You're the person who has the right to Luigi Mangione first. Who cares what the feds say? Who cares what the state says? You're the first sovereign to arrest him. You need to, by law, you need to tell the feds of two things. One, we're the first sovereign to arrest him and we have the right to charge him. And two, we have a legal obligation to try him within a year or let him go. So if you don't want us to drop the charges, let him come to Pennsylvania. To which they said, F you. So this is a big, big fight. Now, I think at the end of the day, Thomas Dickey knew he was going to lose that argument and they were going to say no. And this is why I say that I think it's in a way he's working with Karen Agnifilo in New York, because I think what Karen Agnifilo is waiting to do is she's waiting for the official time to run out or a ruling to be made so she can jump all over that shit and say, how exactly are you trying my client in New York about things that were found on him illegally in Pennsylvania when you won't even try him in Pennsylvania? You're just ignoring the fact that that was an illegal arrest. And yes, I 100% have broken down in many, many videos on my channel, especially on Y platform, many, many videos of why it was an illegal arrest. And his attorney, Thomas Dickey, said it was illegal. And his attorney in New York and the state and federal government also said it was illegal for the same reasons I said it was illegal. Everything Me just dropped the bomb on me for some donation. Thank you very much. Everything Me on the Y side. Appreciate the gift. I got another question coming in on the T side, it looks like. Desiree, thank you so much for sharing the love. We're still kind of lingering on the T side, but wait till we get those big. Wait till we get Sean Kent and Ali Benevento, who are big names on TikTok with us, and hopefully I won't get them deplatformed. Would that suck? Would that suck if I got on with them and I got them deplatformed because someone didn't like what I had to say? Everything Me, when they dropped that money, said, hey, by the way, blood pressure check. I'll use your $20 to go see a doctor and get a blood pressure check because I'm sure I'm about ready to pop. All right. Any other questions? I'll just file a lawsuit. Yeah, I've got attorneys in my back pocket, so we're good. Questions from either platform on either side?
One had a good question here, right under everything Me's.
All right, I'll pin it on the Y side. What legal arguments might Mangione's legal team make regarding his mental health, and would they be likely to pursue an insanity defense or argue for diminished capacity? You had to freaking drop that on me when I got 3 minutes. When I got 3 minutes, I usually get done in an hour. There's nothing that says I have to be done in an hour, and that question takes a while. And freaking 1-1 knows it takes a while. Anyways, I'm not mad about it. So in the state of New York, they dropped the first-degree murder charge in furtherance of act of terrorism. That leaves only second-degree murder on the table. And I say only like it's a no big deal. It is a big deal, but it's second-degree murder, not first-degree murder, and that's a huge deal. Why? Because in New York, they have a couple of ways the defense could go. And my gosh, this is nuanced. So if the defense of Karen Agnifilo wanted to say, yeah, my guy did it, but you have to understand why he did it. He was under extreme emotional duress or distress. He was on a downward spiral for 6 months. There's a story that says Luigi Mangione dropped off the face of the planet for 6 months and nobody knew what he was doing. If during that time he was on a downward mental spiral, becoming distraught because of how bad healthcare in America is and how he saw friends and family dying, whatever the case may be, if Luigi Mangione was on a downward mental spiral and got so distraught that in a moment of weakness, he decided that killing Brian Thompson was the only thing that could possibly make a change in this country, then when only second-degree murder is on the table, that's an argument that's a defense they could use. They could. It's very similar to a crime of passion. If I walk in on my spouse in bed with somebody else and I shoot and kill them, the prosecution might say,
there's nothing to argue here. Did he pull the trigger or did he not pull the trigger and kill his wife or kill her lover or whatever? Yes or no? Yes. Well, a jury gets to hear maybe he lost his mind because it was his best friend of 25 years and, you know, and he lost his mind and there happened to be a gun right next to him and he's temporary insanity, grabbed the gun and shot him. Now, so where I'm going with all that is that there is an argument, if the defense wanted to go that way, that Luigi Mangione could have done it, but you have to understand why. The problem with that is, and it's one of the arguments that Karen Agnifilo is making, is it is not fair to my client that he's being tried in the federal government and the state at the same time with completely different theories about why it happened. And if I go with one defense in one case, it may ruin his case in the other case. For example, if Karen Agnifilo were to say, yeah, my guy did it, but you have to understand why he did, which would possibly take second-degree murder down to manslaughter and be only 5 years potentially on the minimum side of punishment, which would be enormous for him. If I admit that and I say that he did it, then the federal government will say, well, then you're screwed because we don't have an EED defense. We don't have an emotional distress defense, and we will execute him because you just admitted he did it. So what she's argued is it's not fair to Luigi Mangione that I have to defend him two different ways in two different cases. Now, it does not mean that Karen Agnifilo is going to claim a temporary insanity or an emotional distress or whatever, but that situation is on the table. It is on the table, which is why, and people are not going to like me saying this, I can almost feel some friends turning on me as I say this. What you're not going to like is this is the reason why, in my opinion, Karen Agnifilo immediately the day after the ruling of first-degree murder being taken off the table, and now the option is on the table for the EED defense, the extreme emotional disturbance, why she immediately went after the death penalty on the federal case. Because if you got first-degree murder removed on this one and you got the death penalty removed on the other case, her client is in a much, much, much better situation than he was going in, where he was literally going to spend the rest of his life behind bars without the possibility of parole or likely executed. So that's why step one is get first degree murder taken off the table, so you have more options. And step two is to get the whole it wasn't terrorist, it's aggravating factors. The fact that he put other lives in danger by shooting allegedly by shooting Brian Thompson on a crowded street of New York City. That's what they're trying to say. And that it was politically motivated to shape public opinion, which he's also saying is not true. He's not a terrorist, and Brian Thompson was not a political figure. So you can't call him, you can't use those aggravating factors. So it's a very nuanced battle. I hope I answered the question, but yes, the EED defense, it's a type of defense that says, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it. And the last thing I'll say about that makes it very, very nuanced and difficult is I said from the very beginning, oh my gosh, this is what got me suspended on TikTok. So let's see if I can get away with this. I wasn't going to say the name. I was going to say T platform. This is what got me suspended last time. So let's see if I can get away with it today. Pam Bondi came out and said very, very early on in Trump's presidency, Luigi Mangione is a murderer who killed an innocent man and father of two and should be put to death. And Karen Agnifilo responded and said, how dare you call my guy a murderer when he hasn't even had his first day in trial? And you're doing this despite the fact that you're defending a murderous healthcare system. And I said and that's what got me shut down. My live feed got shut at that point, and I said that was hate speech for quoting his defense attorney's position, which is that you're defending a murderous healthcare system. I shouldn't have repeated it because I'm going to get myself shut off. Now, where does that? I hear the question coming in. Give me a second to finish this thought. So when that happened, I said to a couple of my attorney friends who I've befriended on the T platform, it sounds like Karen could be setting up a situation in which she's going to try to put the healthcare system on trial. Having said that, I don't know how you do it because the prosecution's going to say, Your Honor, the healthcare system's not on trial here. Luigi Mangione's on trial for shooting Brian Thompson in a story. But, and while I had attorneys tell me, you're right, that'd be a super hard sell. There's no way for Karen that I can think of to put the healthcare system on trial. But au contraire, because now the EED defense is on the table. And EED defense means you're allowed to tell a jury how you got emotionally distraught. How can you tell the jury how you got emotionally distraught if the way you got emotionally distraught is because the healthcare system made you distraught, then you have to put the healthcare system on trial, because you have to explain to a jury what it is that made you so distraught that you felt that you needed to do that, if they go that way. I'm not saying Karen Ignifilo is going that way. All right, I had a question somewhere, and I think I finished that rant. All right, so the question was, if, as I said before, that the arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania was illegal, and therefore the evidence that was found there is suppressed, meaning, or I should say dismissed, if you will. It's not allowed because it's fruit of the poisonous tree, which means that they obtained it illegally. What happens to the federal and the state case in New York? It is a super interesting question and very nuanced. Again, let me take one's comment off the screen on the Y side. So here's the thing. I do believe Luigi Mangione was illegally arrested in Pennsylvania, and therefore, when they found on him what they say was a confession letter saying, yeah, I did it, and to the feds, I'm the only one that did it, I'm the sole guy. When they said that he had in his backpack a manifesto, which I lose my shit every time they say manifesto. It's not a manifesto. His attorneys even said there was a notebook that had personal feelings about the healthcare system. It wasn't designed to be put out in the public. That's what a manifesto is, something written for the public. It wasn't written for the public. It was personal notes. So all of those things they found on him, including the weapon. They also say that there was a 3D printed gun in Luigi Mangione's possession, which they now claim matches identically to the bullets fired in New York. So that's what they're saying. And as much as you are all going to hate this, if you hate Luigi Mangione, or if you don't, I should say, I don't even want to say hate. Let's not say you hate Luigi Mangione. If you feel Luigi Mangione is guilty, and that all those things in his backpack did exist, then you don't care that it was illegally obtained. It's there. He did it. Throw the book at him. However, I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the law, and I believe that if you're going to use the law to execute somebody in particular, you should probably follow the law. And so the law states that Luigi Mangione has to be read his Miranda rights, and he has to be told he's under investigation, and he has to be told he's under arrest. And you can't just pick up his backpack and search it, and then when you find something in it, repack it and say, now that we've found that you have something on you, we're going to tell you that you have the right to remain silent. They did that out of order. They broke the law. It's an illegal arrest 6 ways from Sunday. And Thomas Dickey said so in a huge brief. Karen Ignifilo had an even bigger brief in better language because she's a better writer, I think, personally. No shade on Thomas Dickey, but Karen Ignifilo is a badass. Anyways, Karen Ignifilo did it even better and even bigger with screenshots and pictures of the police body-worn cameras where they pinned Luigi Mangione and illegally detained him in the corner and told him that he was free to go while they had a wall of officers pinning him in the corner so he couldn't go. The whole thing is illegal. So at the end of the day, answering the ultimate question, if they decide that no judge is going to do it, in my opinion, but then again, Carl surprised me, but no judge is going to have the stones to say that was an illegal arrest. But if they do, unfortunately for those who are pro Luigi Mangione in some way, and that doesn't mean you support a murderer. That's not what I'm saying. If you're pro Luigi Mangione in some way, and again, when I say murderer, I'm not saying Luigi Mangione is a murderer. He has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. If they determine that the item that was an illegal arrest, as they should, if they do, then the state of New York really should not be able to use it. Should not. The precedent has been set. If one state says it was illegal and an illegal search and seizure, other states aren't going to be able to use it. That is called fruit of the poisonous tree. It was illegally obtained evidence, and you can't use it. The bad news, the part that I said is going to be bad if you have a positive feeling about Luigi Mangione, the bad news is the feds have already stated, we already have Luigi Mangione 6 ways from Sunday. We don't need the gun. We don't need the manifesto. We don't need the confession letter. We've got him on video. We've got him on video at the hostel. We've got him in video committing the crime in the streets of New York. We've tracked his movements. We know where he was at all times. We know where he was going, and we can prove it in a court of law. It's discovery that we have not seen in America. They're telling you already, we have a big enough case against Luigi Mangione. We don't even need that information. So, yes, would they love to have that information? Abso-freaking-lutely. They want that information. They don't want that evidence tossed out. They got what they think is a confession letter on Luigi Mangione. So absolutely, it's going to hurt their case. Absolutely, it's going to hurt their case. But they will proceed to trial with Luigi Mangione with or without that evidence because they believe they have enough. Any other questions or comments? I got an inside joke in my comments. That's why I'm laughing. I'm laughing. I just had an inside joke. I'm going to let that go for the moment. Any other questions or comments? All righty then. Well, like I said at the beginning of this, or midway through my rant, I think it was midway through my rant, this is not normal me. I mean, I do get ranty, I do get shouty, I do get passionate about constitutional issues. But that whole article I read, where it seems like they're saying, hey, hey about you TikTokers and you YouTubers who talk a big game, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and go commit violence or shut the hell up? That kind of shit made me angry and I got preachy. So it's not my normal thing to get that preachy. That article touched me on a personal level. And I hope you follow the logic and saw it the way I did. Or maybe you're thinking, I need to get my head examined. That's not what that article said, and I missed the point entirely. Maybe I did miss the point entirely. But it sounded a lot like, to me, like they were trying to basically shame me for talking about the situation, that I should just shut up or commit an acts of violence myself. It's one of the two. So that's horrible. That's horrible. And it's horrible that the president of the United States is trying to act like Luigi Mangione is a political assassin, and that anybody who says anything to support the idea of his constitutional rights being violated and having a fair trial is a terrorist sympathizer, and try to shut them down that way. Oh my gosh, let's hope that never happens in America. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great night. Check out my Y channel where I have a ton of long form videos, including videos on Idaho 4, on Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann. I've had big attorneys on my show of multiple varieties and multiple cases. It's getting to be a bigger and bigger channel. We're doing great things over there. Charlie Kirk is a big thing going on over there as well. So if you are interested in any of those stories, check me out over there. And then I bid you adieu. There you go. That's it.